So I'm sitting here thinking to myself because today was kind of a big day for me, and maybe I'll tell you more about that soon. But for right now, that's all I'm going to share. But it was kind of a big day, so I was sitting here reflecting on it, and I had this kind of epiphany moment that I wanted to share with you guys. And so so I was thinking about how dreams may be coming true, or when our dreams come true, we sometimes tend to have an unexpected reaction of being scared, of fear, of being terrified, of feeling like, we're afraid of what's happening. And maybe part of that's because of, there's always risk involved in following a dream or going after a dream or letting a dream happen. And there's also, just the bigness of it. There's when something big shifts in your life, it can bring about fear and, not, uncertainty and not being sure about where you're going or what's going to happen. And so anyway, I'm sitting here thinking about that. And one of my fears that's been popping up today has been around the things I can't control, or what I'm not going to be able to control when this dream comes to fruition. And so I'm sitting here thinking about that versus, my fear of losing control. And if anybody knows me, they're probably laughing right now because, yeah, I'm kind of, I like to be in control. And I think most of us do in our own ways, right? So I'm thinking about that fear versus my belief that we each create our own reality. And I'm like, wait a second. If I'm afraid of losing control, but I believe that I create my own reality, how can I lose control, right? And then I realized that the epiphany was that the reason I'm afraid of that, losing control, is because control and creation are very different things. They're totally different things. When you're trying to control something, you're trying to manipulate, you're trying to force, you're trying to make something happen, you're trying to, bend things to your will and control. And when it comes to, especially if you're talking about something that has to do with other people, you cannot control what somebody else does. We can only control what we do, right? So when it comes to that, or even, just external circumstances we can't always control. So when you're thinking about creating your reality, and I'm just riffing off the cuff here, guys, so this is completely just stream of consciousness, so forgive me if it doesn't make total sense. But when you're talking about creating your reality, you are, yes, choosing things intentionally, and you're focusing on what you want instead of what you don't want. And you are, you are purposely and intentionally going after things that you want. But creation isn't about control. Creation is about knowing what you want and then letting it happen, or doing the right things to get you there. It's not necessarily about controlling the outcome. It's about knowing what direction you're heading and going in that direction and kind of allowing things to happen as they go. I've said this numerous times to people when talking about creativity. Creativity is not a linear process. It's not a straight line from point A to point B. Creativity is more of like a spiral, it kind of goes here and goes there, and you don't always have a straight view of creation as it's happening. You can kind of see a distant glimmer. You can kind of imagine the possibilities, but there are things that we're creating right now that we can't even imagine because they're so big and they're so outside of what we can think of right now with our brains, because our brains are somewhat limited by our own experiences, right? So anyway, controlling is a very limited form of trying to make things happen. You're trying to control something, and so you're going to get results that are very logical, results you can think of, results you could imagine, results within your own parameters. What I'm trying to say is you'll get limited results with control. When you're trying to control things, you'll get results that you expect, because control is a very linear thing. It's a very I'm not putting this into words very well, but control is a very linear thing. It's a very much, I want this to happen, so I'm going to make that happen. I want this specific thing to happen, so I'm going to go make this specific thing happen. And so you get this specific thing, and that's it. You don't get anything outside of that. You're not open to the possibilities. You're not open to possibilities that you can't even fathom because you're so focused on controlling things and making things happen the way that you want them to. Whereas if you're creating, you're kind of just allowing things to come through. You're kind of just, you're flowing with things. You're in creation. You're in co-creation with the grander scheme, right? And when you allow that to happen, instead, you get a much, maybe not linear path at all. I mean, you kind of go here, there, and everywhere, but you end up with results that are probably better than you could even imagine. Because creation is what it is. It's creating something new, right? And oftentimes creation is creating something that you haven't ever thought of before. Maybe you couldn't even fathom back when you started creating it, because what led you from point A to point Z was not a linear thing. It was from point A to point W, and then you went back to T, and then you went over to P, and then, you bounced back and forth. And to end the rant, when I think about my life, for example, there are things that I was in control of, right? Like getting a college degree or 3. It was a very linear process. I chose a degree path. I chose the classes I needed to take, and I followed a very linear path, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I ended up with my college degrees. Then if I think about my life and how my life has unfolded, oh my gosh. It's been all over the place, you guys. And part of that has been by design, by my own design. And part of that has just been by following intuition and playing and co-creating and going with the flow and following, impulses that I've been given or have received to go here or go there or move here or move there, or, follow up on this instinct or chase that dream or go after that job or whatever. And it might have looked to the external viewer like I was bouncing around a lot, like a ping pong ball, probably. But to me, it all makes perfect sense now, because there was no other way I could have ended up right here, right now. It took bouncing around from A to W to, it took bouncing around in a non-linear fashion, co-creating with the universe or source or whatever you want to call it, in order to get me right here, right now. And let me just tell you, I wouldn't trade where I am right here, right now for anything. For anything. So, just my rant on control versus creation. I think they're very different things, and I think that control will get you expected results, which is a good thing sometimes. But I think that creation or co-creation is a much more open, expansive, limitless way of approaching things. So I'm just going to leave you with that. Give me your thoughts in the comments below. Till next week. Take care.